The Tinder Box. Tom the soldier couldn't wait to get home. He'd spent the past 5 years in the army, and he was looking forward to a well-earned rest from all the marching and boot polishing. As he strolled along, Tom heard a rustle from the nearby bushes, and an old woman leapt out in front of him. "How would you like to be really, really rich, soldier?" she cried with a grin. "Well, who wouldn't?" replied Tom, when he'd recovered from the shock. The old woman pointed a bony finger at a gnarled, hollow tree. "Under there lies a cave full of treasure, and it's all yours." "I just want an old tinderbox you'll find down there," added the woman. "I can't get it myself, because the cave is full of fireflies, and they scare me to pieces." "The 3 treasure chests are guarded by fierce dogs," warned the woman, "but lay them on this apron and they won't harm you." Armed with the apron and a length of rope from his bag, Tom climbed to the top of the hollow tree. He tied one end of his rope to a branch and lowered himself inside the trunk. Down and down he went. At first it was pitch black, but as he got lower, Tom could make out a faint light beneath him. Gradually it became brighter and brighter. At last, Tom's feet touched solid ground, and he found himself in an echoing cave, illuminated by the golden glow of hundreds of tiny fireflies. Up ahead were 3 oak doors, each one carved with the head of a dog. "The treasure chests must be in there," thought Tom nervously. Clutching the apron tightly, he tugged at the first door, which swung open with a creepy creak. Tom gasped. A big, growling dog with eyes as big as teacups was perched on a crimson treasure chest. Tom unfurled the apron, picked up the dog, and placed him gently on top. Then he eased open the chest. Hundreds of bright copper coins cascaded onto the floor. He scooped them up and put the dog back on the chest. In the next room was an even bigger dog with eyes as big as saucers. Tom took a deep breath and lugged the dog onto the apron. When he opened the second chest, thousands of shiny silver coins streamed out. The final room was the scariest of all. Slumped over a chest was a gigantic dog with eyes as big as dinner plates. It took all of Tom's strength to heave him onto the apron. When the last chest was opened, what seemed like 1,000,000 glittering gold coins poured out. Tom stuffed as many coins as he could into his bag and his hat. He was just about to leave when he remembered the old woman's request. Sure enough, wedged between 2 stones was a little brass tinder box. Tom added the box to his treasure and hauled himself up the rope. It was a lot harder than climbing down, but eventually he was back outside. "Here's your tinder box," said Tom, plucking the tin from his bag. As he did so, a tiny firefly buzzed out and landed on the old woman's nose. "No!" she cried out. There was a puff of smoke, and the old woman vanished. That was no ordinary old lady, thought Tom. I think she was a witch. Tom strode into the nearest town, his bag clinking and clunking with his newfound treasure. Until a few hours ago, he had been a badly paid soldier, but now he was super rich. Tom headed for the swankiest hotel he could find. "A suite of your best rooms, please," he said, tossing down a handful of gold coins. For a while, Tom enjoyed fine living. He splashed out on tailor-made clothes and dined in the best restaurants. But he was also kind-hearted, and soon he had given away all of his money to the poor. In no time at all, Tom went from riches to rags. All he had left was the tinder box. "I'll light this candle to keep warm," he said, with a shiver. He took a flintstone, a piece of steel, and some cloth from the tinder box. He struck the steel with the flint to make sparks. But instead of setting light to the cloth so that Tom could light his candle, they swirled magically across the room. From the shower of sparks, a huge dog appeared. "It's a dog from the cave," gasped Tom in disbelief. "The one with eyes as big as teacups." "Your wish is my command, master," barked the dog. "What do you desire?" Tom could hardly believe his ears. A talking dog offering wishes? "Well, I could really use some money," he began. Without waiting, the dog raced from the room, returning moments later with a bulging bag of coins. Tom sat open-mouthed. He soon found that 2 strikes with the flint brought the second dog. 3 strikes made the third dog appear, and both dogs could make his wishes come true, just like the first one. Now he knew why the witch had wanted the tinder box. By the end of the night, Tom was rich again. Tom used his new wealth to buy a grand house in the middle of town, and life was good. He was having breakfast one morning when he heard the sound of hooves on the cobbles outside. "That'll be the king and queen going for their weekly carriage ride," said Tom's maid, Meg. Tom leaned out the window to take a look. "Why are there no cheering crowds?" asked Tom. "No one likes that snooty pair," snorted Meg. "They keep the poor princess locked in her room at the palace and never let her go out. Didn't you know?" "I've been away in the army for a long time," explained Tom. He felt sorry for the princess and was determined to meet her. "I think I have an idea." That night he took out the tinder box and summoned the dog with eyes as big as teacups. "Please bring the princess from the palace," he asked the faithful hound. With a glint in his eye and a wag of his tail, the dog padded off into the night. Minutes later, the dog returned with the sleeping princess on his back. As soon as Tom set eyes on her, he fell hopelessly in love. At first light, the dog gently took the princess back to the palace. When she awoke that morning, the princess told her parents about a dream she had had. "I visited a handsome stranger," she said, yawning. "Perhaps it wasn't just a dream," the king grumbled to his wife. "We'll know if it happens again," replied the queen with a sly grin. That night, as soon as the princess was asleep, the queen tied a bag of flour to her daughter's nightdress. Then she made a tiny hole in the bag. An hour later, the dog carried the princess to Tom's house once again. Early the following morning, the dog returned the princess, as before. But as the sun rose, the king followed the telltale trail of flour from the palace to Tom's house. "Got you!" the king roared at Tom. "No one sees the princess and lives." Tom was thrown into the deepest, darkest palace dungeon to await his fate. "I'll never see the princess again," he sighed. As dawn approached, his maid Meg appeared. "I just came to say goodbye, sir," she sniffed. "Cheer up, Meg," said Tom. "I've had an idea. Please bring me my tinder box." Meg followed Tom's instructions. Moments after she had handed him the tinder box, Tom was dragged from the dungeon and marched across the courtyard. Everyone in the kingdom had heard what had happened, and they all felt sorry for the soldier. People soon gathered to shout their support. "Silence, peasants!" barked the king. "Yes," agreed his wife as she swished past. "Any more of that, and you'll be next." It's now or never, thought Tom, as he sneaked the tinder box from his pocket. As quickly as he could, Tom struck the steel with the flint once, twice, 3 times. In an instant, the 3 dogs bounded from a cloud of sparks. "Chase this wicked king and queen from the kingdom," ordered Tom. Howling and growling, the dogs obeyed. Tom freed the princess, and soon after they were married. The kingdom had a new king and queen, and everyone was invited to the wedding party. Even the tinderbox had its own special cushion, guarded by the 3 loyal dogs.